Hi, welcome or welcome back. I'm Leslie and welcome to what I like to call Crochet for Icons. And if you're here right now, you're an icon, duh. Today we're going to be working on something really easy but also really cute. We're going to be working on some bow charms. I hope you guys aren't tired of making back charms yet because we're making another one. These are really easy once you get the hang of them and they're pretty quick to make as well. If you're just as excited as I am, let's get started. You're going to need weight for acrylic yarn in 2 different colors. One color for this big bow as well as this loop, and then a second color for our smaller, thinner bow in the center. A 5.5mm hook, you can use a bigger or smaller hook, it's just going to make your bows bigger or smaller. A pair of scissors, a yarn needle to weave in our ends, but you can also choose to use your hook instead. And this part's optional, but you can choose to use any beads or extras that you may have. I'm going to be using this heart for mine. A hot glue gun to glue your bows together or any extra charms. You can also just sew your bows. We're going to be starting with these slip knots, so pinch between your pinky and your thumb, wrap around your top 3 fingers to create an X, pinch it again, and then turn it over, and you're going to pull that first line all the way through, and that's going to be your slip knot. You can just adjust it on your hook. Then we're going to be doing 3 chains, so go ahead and chain 3. Then you're going to insert your hook into the second chain away from the hook. So insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through. So you should have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to insert your hook into that last chain and do the same thing. So insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through. So you should have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to take your hook out of those first 2 loops. And you're going to want to hold on to those first 2 loops so that they don't close. Then carefully yarn over and pull through that last loop. Then we're going to insert our hook into that second loop. Carefully yarn over and pull through that loop. Then we're going to insert our hook into that last loop and yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have something that looks something like this. We're going to continue this pattern, so I'll show you again. You're going to hold on to the first 2 loops and take your hook out of those loops. You're going to carefully yarn over and pull through that last loop. Then insert your hook into the second loop. Carefully yarn over and pull through. And then insert your hook into that first loop. And you're going to yarn over and pull through. We're going to continue this for the remainder of our bigger bow, and here's a tip for you. If your loops feel like they're too tight, you can just pull them up a little bit. And also, when you're taking your hook out of those first 2 loops, when you yarn over, make sure not to pull that too tightly because otherwise the first 2 loops will close. So take your time with this, don't worry if you don't get it at first. The more you practice, the easier it'll get. So continue the pattern for 35 rows. You can do more rows or less rows if you want your bow to be longer or shorter. To figure out how many rows you've done, you can just look at these loops on the side. Each loop is worth 1 row, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So if you ever lose count, you can just look at these. I finished making 35 rows and this is what my ribbon looks like. To finish off our big bow, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Then we're going to chain 1, cut your yarn, and you can fasten off. I always leave a bit of a long tail, but that's just a preference. To fasten off, you just pull your yarn all the way through and then tighten that. To tie it into a bow, you're going to take your ribbon and you're going to create 2 loops. Then you're going to cross the loops, then push 1 loop through this bottom hole. Then I kind of flipped my bow over and tightened it and adjusted it. Your bow should look something like this. For the ends, we're going to be weaving it into the stitches of the back. You can tell this is the front because this front part is more round, and if I turn this over to the back, you can see that we can pull these stitches apart because it's curled up on itself, so that's how you know this is the back. You can see those stitches in the middle. That's where we're going to be weaving our end under. So I'll first show you how to do it with the yarn needle. So thread your yarn through your needle, and we're going to turn our bow to the back side, and then you're going to want to pull apart in the center. Pull these stitches apart until you can see those middle stitches, and I'll put my needle under these so that you can see. So we're going to be weaving underneath these middle stitches. So go under those middle stitches until you reach towards the center of the bow, and you also want to make sure that when you're doing this, you're only going through the back side and not the front. So if I flip this over, you can see I didn't go through the front. I then just pinch this lower part of the bow just to reshape it, and then you can just cut your yarn and you're done with that end. And then I'm just pinching it again, and this is how it should look with the ends weaved. I'll show you how to do it with your hook now in case you don't have a yarn needle. So pull apart those stitches until you can see the center stitches. And you're going to put your hook under those stitches from the top to the bottom. And you want to make sure that you're going underneath each of these stitches. And also make sure that you're not going through any of the stitches on the front. We only want to be going through the back stitches. Then you're just going to take your end and you're going to hook it and pull it all the way through underneath every single one of those stitches. And then I'm just pinching this bottom part just to reshape it a little bit. You can cut your yarn and you're all done for this end. We should have a cute little bow like this. To create the loop for our keychain, we're going to start with a slip knot but leave a longish tail just so that it's easier to weave in this end. We're going to be inserting our hook into this center part of our bow here, but you're going to go through only half of it. So go through about 2 loops is what I like to do. So insert your hook halfway through, and then you're going to do a slip stitch. And then tighten that slip stitch. For the loop, we're going to be doing 45 chains. I like to do around 40 to 50. You're welcome to do more or less. You just want to make sure that your loop is big enough to be able to fit the bow through for when we hang it. Once you have all your chains, we're going to be going back into that center. Insert your hook into that second half that we didn't go through. So go from the center outwards, again trying to go through 2 loops, and then do 1 slip stitch. Then go ahead and tighten that slip stitch. Then chain 1, cut your yarn and fasten off, and leave a little bit of a longish tail to make it easier to weave in our ends. I then just adjusted my loop a little bit by pushing it a little bit towards the back. Your keychain should look like this so far. To weave in the ends, I'll show you how to do it with the yarn needle, but you can also do this with your hook. We're first going to weave in the right end, so thread it through your yarn needle, and then we're going to put it underneath this center to the other side, and pull it all the way through. Then we're going to take that end and we're going to move it towards the back side, so go ahead and pull it towards the back. And we're going to be weaving it underneath the middle stitches of this side of the bow. This is basically the same thing as when we weaved in the ends for the bottom part of the bow. So work your way around this side of the bow, going underneath those center stitches. Once you reach the center of the bow, you can just cut your yarn. For the other end, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. So you're going to take the end and you're going to bring it underneath the center and then to the back. And then you're going to weave it underneath the center stitches. And then when you reach the center, you can just cut your yarn, and that's going to be it for the ends. Our keychain is looking like this so far. We're now going to work on our thinner bow, so go ahead and grab your second color. We're starting again with a slip knot just to attach our yarn to our hook. For the entire thinner bow, all we're going to do is chains. So I like to do about 30 to 35 chains, but if you want yours to be longer, you can make it longer. If you want yours to be shorter, you can do less chains. Once you have all your chains, you're just going to chain 1 and you're going to cut your yarn. Then pull that end all the way through. Then insert your hook back into that last loop and you're going to pull that end through once more. This is just to make the knot a little bit more secure, so then you can go ahead and tighten the knot. Then we're just going to tie this chain ribbon into a bow. So create 2 loops and then you can cross those loops over and then push 1 loop through this bottom hole. Then I just flipped it over and tightened it. Once your bow looks something like this, you can go ahead and cut those ends shorter. And all that's left to do is to attach the 2 bows together. So I'm going to be using hot glue, but you can sew yours on if you don't have a hot glue gun. So we're going to put hot glue in the center of this big bow and then place a smaller bow over it. And if you're using extra charms, you'll just add some more glue to this smaller bow and then place the charm in the center. If you're using flat back charms, I always like to file the back of mine just so that the glue sticks a little bit better. Gives it a little bit more texture on the back. Ta-da! We're all done! I definitely recommend making these in different sizes, different colors, and with different types of yarn. To hang it on, you just put your loop underneath your back strap. Then pull your bow through the loop and tighten it, and that's it. I hope you had so much fun making these. I'll leave all my social media down below in case you're interested in following me. I'll see you next time, and if nobody told you today, you're iconic, duh!